Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And today this is my first fly on doing my new series on Euro nymphs. It's going to be the Pheasant Tail. It's a common adaptation of a traditional pattern. And in this series I'm going to do standard Euro nymphs that you'll see any fly fisher use. I'm going to do these adaptations. I'm also going to do a few adaptations that probably don't get used very often or at all. So it'll be a little different. And the other thing I'm going to do with this series is I'm going to talk about how the fly is going to get used, where it's most appropriate, what kind of water, what kind of situation, because they're not all the same. Some penetrate very quickly, some do not. And so that really controls where and how you use them. So let's get started with the Pheasant Tail. My hook is the Dohiku. It's a size 8. And it is barbless, and it is a jig style hook. And what that hook looks like is here. So you can see it has the jig bend and a very long point, and that long point helps it to hold. I'm going to tie most of the flies in this series on either this hook or something similar to it. The bead is going to be a 4mm tungsten in a brass finish, and you could use a smaller bead if you want. Bead size controls not only the casting, but also how quickly it penetrates and how deeply it goes. My thread is going to be a 10-aught black Veevus. Just because this is a pheasant tail, it's got to have copper wire, it's a rule. The tail on the body is going to be made out of pheasant tail. And we're going to make the thorax out of Peacock Herl. Okay, let's get started. First thing I do is I put a little bit of a bump at the back of the bead just to keep it from moving. Makes it easier when you're tying the fly that the bead isn't flopping all over the place. Okay, bring your thread back. Now we'll tie in our copper. And just work that all the way back. Bring that back to the hook point. Well, past the hook point. Well past the hook point, I should say. Because these hooks have a very long point, you're going to be always working all the way back to the gape. And I'm going to put a bit of a bump there. And that'll help splay my pheasant tail. So pick off 3 or 4 barbs. Now, don't make the tail too long. Nymph tails generally, a lot of the nymphs don't have long tails. And you need material for the rest of this tie. So if you leave yourself short here, you're going to have some issues when you go to try to complete the body. Now, one of the things I do to help make my life a little easier, I put hackle pliers on my barbs, my pheasant tail barbs, and I twist up the pheasant tail. Now, be careful of the hook point, don't catch it. Now I'm going to bring one turn at the back, and then I'm going to come forward, and you really have to do some maneuvering to get around that long hook point. We'll stop there. You can see how you get really short with the Peacock Herl barbs and you start running out. This is a fairly large fly to use this kind of style, this kind of approach. Another way to do this, if you're concerned about this, is you tie in the tail with one batch and then you start your body with another batch of barbs. That's another way to do it. This is a very quick way. I don't think this produces the best looking fly, but you're using one set of barbs and doing the whole body. So you do lack a little bit of the tapering. You can see the tapering is not great. So this is just a choice. So you can tie your tails in, then throw some more on and tie the body, or just do what I did. Do one load of barbs to do both jobs. Now for our copper wire. And you can put a turn at the back and then come forward. Clip our wire off. Now, this is optional, but you can put in a wing case. So grab about 5 or 6 barbs of your pheasant tail. Point the butts backwards. We're going to use the butt section for the wing case. Now, in traditional pheasant tail, this loose stuff here would be used to produce the legs. I'm not putting legs on this, and there's a reason for that. When you are doing Euro nymphs, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want this fly to penetrate very quickly, or do you want it to penetrate more slowly? This depends on the water you're fishing. Deep, fast slots, you want to get down fast. Slower water, or water's not that not that deep, you want a fly that sinks a little slower, give you a bit more of a chance. Otherwise, you're going to be on bottom very quickly. So I've just taken my Peacock Herl here. Put a couple of turns in to hold it. Now, if you wanted a robust fly, you could make a dubbing loop out of this Peacock Herl. I've got a video on that. I just would make a dubbing loop and spin it up. Or you can just give it a bit of a twist with your fingers. And then wind this on, being careful not to break it. You can see it's separating a little bit on me. That's what the dubbing loop does. It gives you a little bit more control. You could also put some light hackle pliers on this and use those to spin them. That's another choice. Okay, now we bring our wing casing over. Just make sure it's centered. Bind it down. And finally, whip finish. Now I can see some of you talking already. You're saying, you put your wing case on the wrong side because this fly rides like that. Isn't the wing case wrong? No. I've read some articles that say that crawler nymphs, when they're floating in the current, ride upside down. Also, when this flies in the water, it's going to move around. So which is the correct way for the wing case? We tend to get stuck in our mindset of seeing the world the way we do on our vise and think everything is going to look like that in the water, and it doesn't. So, if it really bothers you, put your wing case on that side. But otherwise, just put it here. I don't think it really makes any difference whatsoever in how this fly fishes. So anyway, there's the pheasant tail adapted to Euro nymphing. As I say, in terms of how I did this, you could, do the tail and the body out of one set of barbs like I did with this one, or you could use 2 sets of barbs. Your choice. This is the quicker way. And other than that, it's a very fishable fly. Pheasant tails are a fantastic nymph, and I think you should do well with it. You can vary the bead size. These are slotted tungsten beads, and they're slotted so they'll go around the hook point. You can't get around the gape if you use beads without the slot. And you can use smaller ones if you want it to penetrate less quickly and ride a little higher in the water column. That's your choice. You pick the bead to suit the water. So I'm using a big bead today, but you could use a smaller bead if you wished. So there we go. Your Euro nymph style pheasant tail. And this thing catches fish. Trust me on this one. Cheers.